And one reason why people call me the leader's heart decoder is because one of my gifts is that I see everything in color. So it's letters, numbers, places. If I tune into a group, the collective energy around that, individuals, and it usually comes from the heart center. And I learned over time, over the last 10 years pretty much, how I'm supposed to use that gift. And in the medical term, it's called synesthesia, where your mirror neurons just translate everything in a different way than what other people would experience. But it also has been very beneficial to me because I did lose those boxes, and I did not see those labels and boxes around people because I just was so focused on the color that I've seen around them. And over time, I learned that the colors changed according to their emotional state. And so I wanted to know more about those emotions, even though my background is in sociology and psychology and I learned about emotion, but it felt too dry for me. I was like, there's something missing, something we are missing when it comes to our emotions. So I dug deeper. I really meditated on it. I studied a lot of different spiritual directions, different authors that approached this entire topic of emotions and emotion intelligence more from a spiritual perspective. And I knew then that the gift that I have is a spiritual gift because it's just a different way you see the world without the physical limitations. And our emotions are on that similar wavelength. Everything is energy, right? So even our emotions are different frequencies, different vibrations that match certain colors on similar frequencies and vibrations. We know that from physics. And so everything, I was just trying to figure out how to help people understand a different relationship to emotions. I know most psychologists say the only thing we have in common is our emotions and how we experience them. But that is, as far as I have figured out, a very classic old view of things that keeps people lined up. So we are all experiencing anger, and anger shows up this way. You do certain things, your breath accelerates, whatever, like there are all those different signs. And then we should fit in. And if we don't fit in, then there's something wrong with us. Either we withdraw completely from society, or we are being medicated because we're not normal. We don't fit in the classical view standard of how we are supposed to experience emotions. And so with me taking on the spiritual approach for emotions in general, I help people to understand that, especially that our brain understands everything in pictures, like we imprint everything in pictures. And I wanted to shift that. And currently we are working on a documentary called The Power of Connection, where I also talk about the history of emotions and how we have taught them and why they're so important. And especially in times like this, we need to become aware of one thing. People who are in power, obviously, or rather in the background, it does not matter, have figured out how to psychologically and emotionally manipulate people into acting and reacting a certain way. We do that with advertising, we do that with commercials, we do that with certain pictures. We even do that when we advertise medications, in particular on TV. Suddenly you have all those symptoms and you need this medication, even if you never had anything before. But it just plays in our heads and we experience it as a reality. So even with something like the virus, and I really acknowledge the virus as something serious, and I'm not sure if it ever was intended to become the pandemic that it is today. But let's be honest, something like that helps leaders, whatever their goal is and wherever they're at, and I'm not pointing at anyone in particular, to keep people under control. If there are suddenly a lot of rabbles coming up, and protests, even if it's peaceful protests, people in power, especially when it comes to greed and money, are real fast to say, we feel a little threatened here. They're taking our system down, that hierarchical system that we have created of hundreds, if not thousands of years to where we fit in, like even the lower class, middle class, upper class, and they want it. If they have created a certain status for themselves, even money-wise, they want to keep that. Like that's become their identity, as well as we carry different identities with us. Even like it could be anything from, oh no, I'm part of the lower class, I will not survive this, or we're going to be we're really going to be in a mess here, especially us, because we don't have money. We don't have that as the rich people do. So there is purpose behind all of what we're seeing, and there is a certain level of manipulation going on, because people who are afraid, people who are in fear constantly, people who are reactive are the ones that are the easiest to be controlled. You can maneuver them around to the place of isolation, emotional isolation, mental isolation, but also physical isolation, so that whatever else has been planned, and just take a look at what's been happening, mass arrests has been happening the last 2 days, just pay attention to the bills that have been introduced worldwide. There are things that are happening underneath all of that, but if people are busy with their own emotional world and not knowing what's going on, and which is very, very understandable, because this is a little scary, right? Especially those who do get sick. Well, if they're distracted, you can pretty much do whatever benefits your own pockets. Now, I know some people would say, oh, that's conspiracy, right? Oh my gosh, now you're talking about conspiracy theory. But it really is not, because it serves the purpose of anarchy, patriarchy, as well as the hierarchical system that we have created, so that our ego can be pleased, understanding the separation from a divine force, from God, from the universe, from an understanding of oneness. If we were to get there, we would actually have to take responsibility for each one of us. And so it serves a purpose of programming. We all have been programmed for many, many years, if it's through school, how things are supposed to go. So when we experience all those emotions from a spiritual perspective, it is really important to become introspective, to take a step back and to say, okay, what am I experiencing? Where am I experiencing it in my body? And being aware that whatever you experience, even if you define it at, for example, anger or fear, someone else, it may look very similar, but it could have a totally different message for them and what is coming up for them. So I'm going to be real transparent in what has come up for me, just to show people an example. I have been very angry, very, very angry over the last couple of days, not just because my filming got canceled and we have deadlines and, there's all those things involved. But I was angry, or I am actually still, at the people. It's like, I'm angry at you for not taking care of your darn health when we told you the whole time, stop with the chemicals, stop with the processed food, stop with the McDonald's food, I am mad at you because you have not taken care of the environment that would support us now in the way we experience this virus. Like, I know this is irrational, and I'm part of that, and it puts myself in a position, in a subconscious position of superior. I've done the work and you didn't, how dare you, right? But that's something I have to reflect on. I could react on, and I could go out and just blame all the people and say, you suck, it's your fault, and we're here because of you, But would that serve anyone? No. Yet it doesn't take away from what I experience. It doesn't minimize my experience. So I've done a lot of meditation. I asked for help. I reached out to some of my coaches and talked through that, and really like, okay, why is this anger coming up? And it is because from an ego perspective, there is something lingering that I feel the responsibility I have a very strong warrior energy, but I'm also an observer. So I see things ahead and I see them, and I get angry when people don't see it. It's so weird. Sometimes I get visions or dreams or messages, and I'm like, don't you see it? Don't you get it? It just makes me angry. but it puts me in a position of righteousness. And it doesn't help me. It's not very spiritual. It's not in alignment with love, but it supports my ego in creating that separation. Mm-hmm. When I think this way, when this comes up, I feel separated from you because you don't get it and I do. And being aware of that in that very moment, I can choose, okay, anger in my case, or in from a spiritual perspective, really is about boundaries. There are boundaries that I have not moved for myself, boundaries that I perceived as moved by others because they don't get it. And so there's a lot of forgiveness work that I have to do with myself, because at the same time, I feel guilty for feeling this way toward others who really just don't know any better. At the same time, there are things coming up where I'm always being told, oh, Isabel will understand. Isabel won't be mad at me, because I always see the bigger picture. But then I'm like, well, now you're leaving me sitting here and hanging here, and I'm supposed to understand, when you go through all of that, and I can't. So again, there is a lot of that comes up for me, and it might even be a karmic energy that's coming up, maybe in one of my past lives, and maybe some don't believe in that, but I do. I have created some kind of movement and it went downhill, and maybe even I don't know, I haven't really researched it or have really gotten to the point of digging deeper within myself. But instead, I just allow myself to be with that and just to surrender to the anger. And yesterday morning, I was just crying all morning. I was cleaning the house and my son was sitting downstairs doing his schoolwork. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I just need to clean the house. It's all right. But it's really cleansing, just giving myself that permission to feel that. That was really important for us in the documentary to show, have this be more tangible. The easiest way for someone to recreate and to reevaluate their relationship to their emotions is to envision them as avatars. We created an animation in the documentary, which I'm really excited about, where people can say, okay, I experience, like you can do a meditation and you can just ask a divine or spirit guides, how do you want me to visualize certain emotions? So for example, sadness could be this really powerful warrior female, where anger could be this really incredible royal hawk. It could be anything. And then you just have those conversations with them. If you really do that within meditation and you ask, hey, anger, what is it that I need to take away from this? What is that I need to learn? And most people I have learned by reading online, social media, and listening to people, the fear that they say is fear, because nowadays everything is just fear because it's the easiest to understand and that's what most people talk about, is actually not fear. It's grief. Mm-hmm. Grief and sadness, because grief is considered as the river of the soul. And what we're seeing right now is a shift in consciousness. And we're on the verge. And when, for example, biblical scholars talk about the spiritual war, this is pretty much what we're experiencing right now, where it could shift either way. Are we waking up to the understanding of oneness, that there is a system in place that is trying to control us? Or are we buying into that messaging, into the programming, and just give them whatever they need and buy into the fear factor and the fear mongering and just continue as we have, even if that means we continue within a social prison? It may not be like a real prison wall, but we still create a box where we can't move much. So there's this understanding, okay, how do we want to proceed? How do we want to move forward as a society, as a world society? And I think this is why it affects the entire world at this point, because it is an understanding that, oh, it's not just one country that is affected, so we don't have to worry about it. No, we're all connected, so it does affect all of us, even across the ocean. And the river of the soul. It's almost like it's swooping in, and that river is cleansing, it's cleaning out. And I think a good question for a lot of people to ask is, what have we made an idol during our lifetime that we're now called to let go of? This could be our lifestyle. Maybe we made our lifestyle an idol in the way we relate to it. Maybe we even made food our idol. So now we're going crazy and, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough food. And some people might have made toilet paper their idol. There's just so many things that go so much deeper. What is it that I have made my idol that I'm trying to hold on so badly? If I were to let it go, I would be desperate. And that could even be life itself. Have we made life itself our idol? Are we holding so much onto it that we're losing it by holding on to it?
Yes.
There's just so much deeper that we can discover, that we can understand about ourselves, because even like, obviously we both have children. You care about your children because they're part of us. We're here to protect them. At the same time, if we're really honest, we did kind of make them our idol. Like, we're holding on. I need to protect you. I will do, like, the mama bear comes through, right? I need to do whatever I need to do. And if I have to kill someone for it so you can be safe. But I think when we take a look from a totally spiritual perspective and we take away physical matter altogether, then there is no difference between life and death. It's just the difference in how we experience. So even if something were to happen and we lose someone, they're not suddenly gone, because you cannot erase energy waves. It's just the physical that is turning back into ashes. That's why even the Bible talks about that, right? So you cannot erase that. It is a different way of living. It will really disrupt our routine. It will disrupt in the way we relate it to that person. It will disrupt so many things, but it also shows us to all those things that we were so attached to throughout the life. And it's fascinating for me to see, okay, what am I really afraid of? What is it that I'm called to let go? The deeper issue beneath that fear, grief and sadness, again, which is about letting go. And I think that's where we're at. And the more honest we are with ourselves, the faster this will pass. The more we are, it's awesome. The more we are holding on to that and just roll with the virus and just focus on the problem itself, we will hold on to it much longer than what we have to. And so it's a choice, a collective choice. And it's interesting because now even when you look on social media, I can't even be on it right now, because for one, everyone says the same thing. And second, there's just so many extremes between make sure you're staying home and you're doing this and you're doing that and be prepared, to singing Kumbaya, you know. That is now the time for the warrior who can see ahead, who do have that vision, to come in and say, I'm encouraging you, do the work now, because the more and the faster we do it as a collective, the faster we will be able to move through this without having to rely on money or people in power to save us, because we can truly save ourselves as a collective without the hierarchical system and the understanding of that programming. Well, something that I have noticed about myself, because I've seen that many times online where people said, you need to step up, leaders have to step up. Now is the time to create an online business. Be careful, because online businesses can be censored way more than actual businesses outside of that. So it's not because we're in the situation now you have to do something that may totally not resonate with you. And that was a really big, I almost felt like I got bullied back into the online world. And because over the last year, I was at a point where I just got really burned out from doing the online work, you know, setting up online business, because it's just not something that I am really passionate about. But what I am passionate about is doing something like that film project, and then sharing that with people in person, yet not being so overwhelmed because I'm every day with people, but it's just a specific time frame where I can present that and then really engage with people in a meaningful way. So I felt like I'm being bullied back into the online world. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Don't stop, you know? So I think that's really to pay attention to our own reaction to what we see online. Some of it may really resonate with us, others may totally not, and that is okay. And just because other people say it doesn't make it true for you. And I also felt guilty because I saw suddenly people posting stuff like, for the next couple of days, I'm offering my services for free, or I'm offering this, or there's so many people offered something that I was like, oh, I probably should do something too, because people then think I'm not compassionate enough or I don't care. But something this morning during my meditation really came up for me where I heard that said, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Even if you believe this to be true about you, that you are a leader, that you are a warrior, that doesn't mean that you have to now run into the masses and somehow need to get your voice out there too. The thing with me is, and that's just my personality, if there's too much of something, like too much of the same message, I will go home. I will be like, fight for yourself. If you want to try to figure out who is louder with this message, go ahead. I will go home and I will take a nap. This is my reaction to it. Not everyone obviously reacts that same way. But I'm not here to prove myself, and I'm not here to fight for a place to have my voice heard, because that is what it does online. So I think for especially people who find themselves in a very spiritual place or even in a leadership position, don't force it. If you do need time for yourself right now, then that's what it is. If you do not want to go back to the business, or if you don't want to create an online business, then that is fine too. You will be fine in the long term, even if you're just setting the intention during your meditation, or you're focusing on the collective energy and the healing of it. Has incredible impact. Even if people don't know about it, or you don't share everything that you do, that doesn't mean that you don't care. As a collective, we unite in the struggle, which actually makes it worse from an energetic perspective, because the more we focus on that and the more we suffer together, the more elevated that energy of the virus becomes, and the more we respond to it, and it just responds to our energy field, right? And so I think it's another thing, even what you see online, because now we unite as heroes. It's such a subtle, if you watch very closely, it's so interesting, because people really mean well, but at the same time you see like, I'm going to save this world now in the way I teach this, or, I'm showing up, I'm being the hero, and I'm reminding you what you should do, which is, there's nothing wrong about it, but we need to pay attention to the intention, the really deep intention, why we do certain things, why we share them the way we do. Is it because everyone says now is the time to be online, because everyone is just socializing online, so now you see your chance in growing your business? There are so many like subtle intentions that go with our decision making on a daily basis that then creates emotional reactions that we're often not even aware of, because we're just focusing on one thing, and that could be in that moment fear, instead of recognizing the grief, the sadness, or maybe there's some shame. If I don't do that, then people will think this. So the intention is fitting in. If I don't do that, or if I'm not successful and I'm not taking the chances now, then I will never be successful. That is an opportunity, but it's not coming from the right place of love, of just simply being your part in this world. There's a different intention behind that, and it's just about being honest. And I struggled with that the last couple of days, because I felt like I should be doing so many things, and now I should be pushing my emotions course, and now I should be pushing that, but I felt really icky around it, and that, I think, was part of the anger as well, because I stepped outside of my own boundaries, outside of what I knew felt good to me. And so a lot of honesty, introspection needs to happen. I sometimes think we shouldn't just quarantine ourselves from the physical world, but also from the social world online. I think any last words for me is that introspection and really pulling away from everything is not that you are losing or that you have not a chance, that everyone is passing you by in life and you missed your chances. We don't know how this is going to unfold, but I think the only way this will unfold in the more positive way is if we do take a more introspective approach to this virus, because really it's not a coincidence that this virus is a pneumonia type, that it affects the lungs, because the lungs, that's where grief is being stored. So it makes perfect sense. It's the same if you look at the lungs of the earth, you know, Mother Earth suddenly can breathe again because the pollutions went down, because people are not going crazy outside, factories have been closed down. It is all connected. So it is a reason why this is affecting the lungs and why we have to really pay attention to the message that comes with the lungs as well as with grief. Two websites right now. The one is the documentary. It's called thepowerofconnection.net, where people can find the trailer and the synopsis and the team and all the stuff that's really important and gets people excited about it. And then for me personally, it's isabelhunt.com, ISABELHUNDT.com. There's also a link to the documentary if someone was just want to remember this one. And there's all kind of ways on how to connect with me on social media, how to potentially work with me, and so forth.